before lightning had a scientific explanation, before rivers were mapped and named, before the sound of drums was dismissed as noise, there were the Orishas. Not imagined, not distant, but real. They were the wind that cooled fevered skin, the fire that forged tools and war, the soft murmur of water promising fertility and wisdom. They are not myths. They are not forgotten. They are not gone. The Orishas, divine forces of nature, guardians of destiny, messengers between worlds, are alive. They live in the rivers and storms, in fire and metal, in rhythm and silence. They speak in dreams, descend in trance, dance through drums, and walk with those who remember their names. In the spiritual universe of the Yoruba people, the Orishas are more than gods. They are the breath of existence, sacred archetypes that govern life, love, war, fertility, death, and transformation. And their presence has not faded with time. It has expanded, crossing oceans, surviving slavery, defying colonization, and continuing to shape the souls of millions today. But who are they really? Where did they come from? What makes Ogun more than a warrior? Why does Oshun cry behind her beauty? How does Eshu stand at every crossroads, speaking riddles to the gods and humans alike? The stories of the Orishas are as ancient as they are immediate, as mythic as they are human. Each one carries a complex personality, a sacred domain, a set of rituals, and a relationship with those who worship them. They are gods who feel, gods who teach, gods who punish, protect, seduce, and sacrifice. To understand them is to enter a world where the divine and the earthly are never separate, a world where the ancestors are never silent. For centuries, the Orishas lived in the spiritual heart of the Yoruba people in West Africa. But when millions of Africans were violently taken and enslaved, the Orishas went with them, hidden in Catholic saints, cloaked in coded songs, preserved in sacred dance and whispered prayers. In the soil of Cuba, Brazil, Haiti, Trinidad, and the United States, the Orishas rooted themselves anew, growing into powerful spiritual systems like Santería, Candomblé, and Vodou. They changed, but they never broke. Today, they are rising once more, not just in ritual, but in identity, art, music, and personal power. This video is not just about gods. It is about survival. It is about memory. It is about the return of a divine order that was never truly lost. It is about the Orishas, the living gods of the Yoruba, and how they continue to shape the world, one spirit at a time. Before the world had shape, before the rivers carved the earth and stars danced across the sky, there was Olodumare, the supreme being in Yoruba cosmology, the source of all creation, energy, and consciousness. Olodumare is not a god in the way we often understand the term. Olodumare is beyond gender, beyond time, beyond form. Olodumare does not dwell in temples or demand offerings. Olodumare is the breath of existence itself, the divine origin from which all things flow and to which all things return. In the Yoruba spiritual framework, Olodumare is not just the creator. Olodumare is the essence of creation, the unseeable, unknowable unity behind the diversity of the cosmos. Yet, Olodumare does not act alone. From Olodumare came the Orisha, divine forces that embody the various aspects of nature, humanity, and spiritual law. But before even they came into being, the universe had to be given order. One of the first expressions of this divine will was Olorun, often considered an aspect or embodiment of Olodumare's presence, the ruler of the heavens, the light that oversees all spiritual activity. Olorun is the sky, the breath, the force that animates everything with Ace. the sacred energy that connects the material and immaterial. Through Ace, the divine energy of Olodumare flows into all creation, and nothing exists without it. In the beginning, the earth was formless and covered in water. Olodumare, through Olorun, sent down a divine being to create land and shape the world. That being was Obatala, the Orisha of purity, peace, and wisdom. With a chain, a calabash filled with sand, a 5-toed chicken, and a palm nut, Obatala descended from the heavens to the watery chaos below. He scattered the sand across the waters, and the chicken spread it with its feet, forming land. The palm nut grew into the first tree, and thus the earth was born. Land from sea, order from chaos. It was Obatala who molded the first humans from clay, and Olodumare breathed life into them, awakening the sacred connection between spirit and flesh. But even divine beings are not without flaws. In one version of the myth, Obatala becomes intoxicated with palm wine and makes deformed or imperfect humans. In shame, he vows never to drink again. This tale reveals the deeply human nature of the Orisha. They are divine, but they are also relatable, carrying emotions, choices, and consequences. They are not distant deities removed from humanity, but active participants in its unfolding story. Following Obatala's earthly mission, other Orisha were dispatched, each with their own duties, domains, and powers. Ogun, the god of iron, came to clear the path with his machete, cutting through forest and mountain to make way for civilization. Oshun, the goddess of love, beauty, and fresh water, brought sweetness and balance, ensuring that no creation would be complete without emotion and fertility. Shango, the thunderous Orisha of fire and power, brought the force of kingship and justice. Ishu, the divine trickster and messenger, ensured that no prayer or offering reached the heavens without first passing through his domain. These Orisha, and many more, became the embodiments of divine principles, each reflecting a facet of Olodumare's infinite nature. Some rule the oceans, like Yemaya, mother of all living things, whose waves carry the heartbeat of the earth. Some govern death and ancestry, like Oya, goddess of winds and the cemetery gates. Each Orisha holds a story, a temperament, and a specific role in the harmony of the cosmos. They are not interchangeable, and yet they are interwoven. A divine network of spirit and nature, intention and action, form and essence. In Yoruba cosmology, these Orisha were not only sent to shape the earth, they were assigned to guide humanity. Each person is believed to be born with a destiny, a spiritual blueprint inscribed before birth. This destiny is revealed through divination, especially through the sacred system of Ifa, where trained priests called Babalawos interpret the signs and messages of the divine. The Orisha play a central role in this destiny, as each person has a head Orisha, a spiritual guardian who shapes their path, challenges, and potential. One does not simply worship an Orisha, one lives with them, through them, beside them. This spiritual hierarchy is both vertical and communal. At the highest level is Olodumare, the divine source. Next are the Orisha, the administrators of universal law. Below them are the ancestors known as Egungun, who serve as guides and protectors for the living. Ancestors are deeply respected, for they continue to influence the present from the other side. Finally, the living community participates in this divine structure, responsible for honoring, maintaining, and balancing the forces that govern the world. The cosmology is not static. It is dynamic, ritualized, and rooted in balance. When things go wrong, when sickness, chaos, or misfortune strikes, it is often seen as a disruption in this balance. Through prayer, sacrifice, music, dance, and divination, the community works to restore harmony, not only with the Orisha but within the fabric of life itself. This cosmological structure has endured not just because of its theology, but because of its adaptability, its emotional resonance, and its deep connection to everyday life. The Yoruba did not need temples to know their gods. The river was a shrine. The forge was sacred. The wind was a message. The Orisha were not above life. They were in it, breathing through its joys and struggles, reminding every soul that it belongs to something greater, something sacred, something eternal. To understand the Orisha is not merely to list their attributes or memorize their stories. It is to step into a world where nature, spirit, emotion, and morality dance together in eternal rhythm. The Orisha are not distant or abstract. They are present, immediate, and alive. Each carries a divine power, a personal temperament, a unique mythology, and a sacred role in the spiritual architecture of the universe. They do not represent forces of nature. They are those forces personified and made intimate, capable of loving, punishing, guiding, and even failing. They are not perfect, but they are holy. And in the Yoruba world and its diaspora, these gods are more than divine figures. They are companions in the journey of life. Among the most beloved of the Orisha is Oshun, the goddess of freshwater, beauty, fertility, love, diplomacy, and sensuality. She rules the rivers, especially the sacred Oshun River in Osogbo, Nigeria, where an annual festival still draws pilgrims from around the world. Oshun is the embodiment of sweetness, yet her story is not without struggle. In one myth, when the male Orisha failed to bring life to the earth, it was Oshun, the only female among them, who restored balance and creation by using her charm, wisdom, and spiritual depth. She is often associated with mirrors, honey, yellow cloth, and jewelry, and is believed to respond favorably to acts of grace, offerings of sweets, and dances that reflect joy and femininity. But do not mistake her sweetness for weakness. Oshun can also withhold her blessings if disrespected, and her tears have the power to flood the earth. She is soft and powerful, gentle and fierce, a goddess who teaches that beauty is sacred, but never to be taken for granted. Standing opposite Oshun in energy and force is Shango, the god of thunder, fire, masculinity, justice, and kingship. Shango's presence is electric, literally. He governs lightning, drums, and the beat of war. Once a mortal king of the Oyo Empire, Shango was deified after death. His legacy transformed into divine myth. His temper is hot, his charisma unmatched. He is often depicted wielding a double-headed axe, symbolizing balance in decision-making and dual power over life and death. Shango is a protector of the righteous, a punisher of liars and the corrupt. His followers are known for their passion, their strength, and their booming praise. When thunder roars in the sky, the Yoruba say it is Shango speaking. His presence reminds the community that power must be just, and justice must be swift. In the forests and forges we find Ogun, the Orisha of iron, war, technology, and labor. Ogun clears paths, both physical and spiritual. He is the machete that cuts through the wilderness, the hammer that shapes metal, the blade that defends the community. He is both warrior and blacksmith, fierce and tireless. Ogun is raw power, but he is also the patron of civilization. Roads, railways, machines, all fall under his domain. His worshippers respect him with offerings of roasted yams, palm wine, and animal sacrifice, asking him to remove obstacles and grant strength in times of hardship. His story, however, is one of isolation and loyalty. In myth, Ogun once left society in grief and rage, retreating into the forest until the people begged for his return. He came back, not for glory, but because they needed him. He is the god of endurance, of those who build and fight and never ask for praise. At the top of the spiritual hierarchy sits Obatala, the Orisha of wisdom, peace, purity, and creation. He is the one who molded human bodies from clay, the elder among the Orisha, the voice of calm in the midst of chaos. Obatala is often associated with white, a symbol of clarity, serenity, and spiritual authority. His followers dress in white garments and observe periods of spiritual discipline to honor his presence. Obatala is a just judge, a healer of deformities, a guide for the confused. He speaks slowly, but when he speaks, it is final. He carries the weight of creation with gentleness, often mediating between more volatile Orisha and helping to maintain divine order. His myth of drunkenness and redemption serves as a powerful allegory about responsibility and restraint, reminding us that even creators can falter and rise again. In the vast oceans, tides, and womb of the world resides Yemaya, also known as Yemoja, the mother of all living things, the Orisha of the sea, nurturing motherhood and protective energy. Her domain is the ocean, the place where life began and where it returns. Yemaya is nurturing but vast, kind but implacable. She is said to have given birth to many of the other Orisha and is often called upon by women seeking fertility, emotional healing, or protection for their children. Her energy is maternal, not just in the biological sense, but in the universal one. She holds, shelters, washes away grief, and gives back strength. In many diasporic traditions, she is symbolized by the moon, seashells, and deep blue waters. When the sea churns or calms, the people feel Yemaya's mood. No conversation about the Orisha can exist without Eshu, the divine trickster, messenger, and master of the crossroads. Eshu is unpredictable, clever, and vital. He delivers sacrifices to the other Orisha, translates prayers, and ensures that every ritual has direction. He is both feared and loved because he embodies the chaotic aspect of life: chance, choice, conflict. In one story, Eshu walks through a village wearing a hat split into two colors. As he passes by, people on either side argue over whether the hat was red or black, never realizing it was both. Eshu teaches that truth is not always what it seems, that perspective matters, and that every path comes with a price. He governs communication, transformation, and consequences. Nothing spiritual moves without Eshu. To forget him is to risk misdirection, and every offering to the Orisha begins with his name. Finally, we come to Oya, the fierce Orisha of wind, storms, transformation, and the cemetery. She is the breath before change, the hurricane that clears stagnation, the guardian of the dead. Oya is powerful and feared, a force of raw upheaval and rebirth. She is associated with the Niger River, the color burgundy, and the whirlwind. Oya does not whisper. She howls. She is invoked during major life transitions, births, deaths, revolutions. Her myth tells of her relationship with Shango and her dominion over the cemetery gates, making her the only Orisha with authority over death's threshold. Yet she is not death itself. She is its storm, the one who accompanies the soul to the other side and clears the space for the next life to grow. Her worshippers are warriors, dreamers, and those who do not fear change. Together, these Orisha form a divine family, not uniform but unified. Their stories are mirrors for human experience: love, war, creativity, betrayal, forgiveness, birth, and death. They live through rituals, songs, altars, and the memories of their devotees. To know them is not just to believe in gods, but to recognize their presence in the world around us. In thunder and river, forge and flame, wind and wave, mystery and movement. They are not just deities of the Yoruba. They are archetypes of the human soul, the divine forces who remind us that we are not alone, that the sacred still breathes through the earth and through us. When the ships came, they did not just carry bodies, they carried worlds. Chained together in the dark bellies of slave vessels, millions of Africans were torn from their homelands, ripped from their families, stripped of their names, languages, and gods. But the Orishas came with them. They crossed the Atlantic hidden in the hearts of their people, in lullabies murmured beneath breath, in the rhythm of calloused hands against wood, in the silent prayers whispered to the sky when hope seemed impossible. Though the enslavers tried to kill their spirits, burn their altars, and erase their rituals, they could not sever the sacred bond. The Orishas survived not by confrontation, but by transformation. They adapted, they hid, and in hiding, they endured. Across the Caribbean and the Americas, the Orishas reshaped themselves through syncretism, the blending of African spirituality with European religious imagery, particularly Catholicism. This was not surrender, it was strategy. When enslaved Africans were forbidden from worshiping their gods, they found new names for them. They placed the image of a saint on the altar, but in their hearts, they knew who they were calling. They baptized their deities in new waters, allowing them to live beneath the surface, disguised but never diluted. The result was the birth of powerful spiritual traditions like Santería in Cuba, Candomblé in Brazil, and Vodou in Haiti, each a living testament to resistance, memory, and divine reinvention. In Cuba, Yoruba spirituality merged with Catholicism to create La Regla de Ocha, better known as Santería. The Orishas were aligned with Catholic saints, not randomly, but through symbolic and spiritual resonance. Shango became Saint Barbara, both associated with lightning, fire, and sudden justice. Oshun merged with Our Lady of Charity, the patron saint of Cuba, known for her golden garments and nurturing grace. Elegua, the Yoruba trickster and gatekeeper, was syncretized with Saint Anthony of Padua, who is often depicted holding a child, symbolic of Elegua's youthful yet powerful nature. These pairings allowed practitioners to continue honoring the Orishas under the watchful eyes of colonial authorities. But behind each candle and rosary, the old gods listened and answered. Rituals, drumming, divination, and initiation ceremonies flourished in secret, passed down through oral tradition, familial lines, and tightly held spiritual communities. Candomblé, born in Brazil, is perhaps one of the most vibrant and openly celebrated Orisha-based religions in the world today. Enslaved Yoruba, along with Fon, Bantu, and other African peoples, brought their gods into the heart of Brazil's cultural and spiritual identity. In Candomblé, the Orishas are known as Orishas, and their worship includes elaborate ceremonies with sacred drumming, dancing, offerings, and trance possession. Each devotee, or filo de santo, child of the saint, has a head Orisha who governs their destiny. When the drums begin to speak, in rhythms known only to the spirits, the Orisha descend, riding their children like horses, possessing them in sacred ecstasy. These moments are not performances, they are divine communion, the gods walking again among their people. In cities like Salvador, Bahia, entire communities are built around toreros, spiritual houses dedicated to preserving these ancient connections. Even in the face of racism, religious persecution, and state suppression, Candomblé has survived and blossomed, not as folklore but as sacred life. In Haiti, the Yoruba Orishas blended not only with Catholic saints, but with the spiritual frameworks of other African traditions, creating Vodou, a complex and deeply powerful faith that draws from multiple lineages. while Vodou has its own pantheon known as the LWA. Some of these spirits bear striking resemblance to Orishas. For example, Erzuli Freda, the spirit of love and beauty, shares traits with Oshun. Ogu, the warrior spirit, mirrors Ogun. Papa Legba, the gatekeeper of the spirit world, bears the cunning wisdom of Eshu. Though the names changed, the core ideas, sacred possession, ancestral reverence, elemental power, and moral balance, remained rooted in the same soil. Vodou ceremonies often involve drumming, song, and possession by spirits, in a circle that honors the dead, the divine, and the continuous dance between them. These diasporic religions were never just about survival. They were acts of spiritual rebellion. In a world where African people were told they were less than human, where their culture was labeled as witchcraft and their gods as devils, they dared to remember. Every ritual was a refusal. Every altar was a declaration. The Orishas in the diaspora became symbols of strength, identity, and continuity. In lands where African names were stripped away, the Orishas offered new ones, sacred names, earned through initiation and spirit connection, whispered only among the faithful. What is even more remarkable is how the Orishas not only survived, but expanded their influence across the globe. Today, you can find altars to Yemaya in Miami apartments, Oshun prayers in Toronto, Shango drummers in Paris, and Alegua statues on streets in Salvador. There are now digital temples, YouTube channels, podcasts, social media pages, where young practitioners across the Black diaspora are reconnecting with Orisha worship, sharing rituals, decoding myths, and building global communities rooted in ancestral truth. In these digital spaces, ancient voices find new echoes, and the diaspora finds its spiritual reflection. This global revival has not been without tension. In some places, these traditions still face prejudice both from governments and mainstream religions. Misconceptions persist, fueled by Hollywood horror films, colonial ignorance, and fear of the unknown. But despite this, the Orisha faith systems continue to grow because they offer something rare, a divine relationship that is personal, ancestral, and grounded in nature. Unlike many imported doctrines, the Orishas do not demand blind obedience. They ask for balance, for alignment, for intentionality. They offer justice when none is given. They provide beauty in the midst of pain, and they connect the living not just to gods, but to each other. To witness the Orishas in the diaspora is to witness a miracle of memory. It is to see how faith can cross oceans, survive whips and chains, disguise itself in song and symbol, and rise again, not weakened, but transformed. The Orishas did not remain behind in Nigeria. They boarded the ships, weathered the storms, stood beside their children in the cane fields and the cotton rows, and waited until they could speak again. And now they are speaking louder than ever, in Yoruba and Portuguese, in Spanish and Creole, in English and silence. They are not relics of the past. They are the future of a spiritual lineage that refused to die. In the 21st century, the Orishas are not just surviving, they are returning with fire. Across continents and screens, in cities and villages, among elders and digital natives, Orisha worship is undergoing a profound revival. No longer confined to backrooms or whispered rites, the Orishas are stepping into the light, embraced by a new generation hungry for truth, roots, and reconnection. For young people of African descent, especially in the diaspora, turning to the Orishas is more than a spiritual choice. It is an act of identity reclamation. After centuries of colonization, forced religion, and cultural erasure, the rediscovery of ancestral gods offers more than faith. It offers belonging, it offers memory, It offers power. Social media has become a digital shrine, filled with videos of Yoruba priests explaining divination, Instagram reels of ritual dances in Brazil, podcasts decoding the myths of Oshun and Eshu, and TikToks documenting initiation journeys. What was once hidden is now being reintroduced with reverence and accessibility. Platforms like YouTube host entire classes on Ifa divination. Twitter threads retell Orishas stories with nuance and scholarship. Facebook groups connect practitioners from Lagos to New Orleans to Havana, sharing offerings, dreams, and spiritual experiences in real time. Through technology, a sacred map is being redrawn, tracing spiritual lineages once thought lost back to their origins and beyond. This revival is also deeply political. To invoke the Orishas in a world that once demonized them is to reclaim narrative. It is to say, our gods were never evil, our ancestors were never primitive, our traditions were never dead. In places where systemic racism and spiritual suppression still linger, the return to Orisha worship is a declaration of dignity. The ceremonies, the altars, the songs, they are not just rituals. They are resistance. They are rebirth. Yet this revival is not a trend. It is a reconnection. The Orishas were never truly gone. They waited in rivers, in dreams, in stories whispered by grandmothers, and now they walk again, in urban apartments and forest groves, in sacred grottos and digital circles. They walk with those who call their names, not out of superstition, but out of remembrance. And in that remembrance, the old ways become new again, alive, vibrant, and rising. They were never lost. Not in the chains, not in the silence, not in the smoke of burning shrines or the pages of forgotten scrolls. The Orishas, these ancient, pulsing forces of spirit and story, have always been here. Beneath the surface of oppression, they waited. Within every drumbeat, every offering, every whispered prayer in languages remembered only by the soul, they endured. When their names were forbidden, they took new ones. When their temples were destroyed, they found sanctuaries in memory, rhythm, and blood. And now, as generations rise, searching for identity, power, and truth, the Orishas walk again, not as myths, but as mirrors. They reflect who we are, who we were, and who we could be if we remembered. To walk with the Orishas is to step into a divine lineage, one braided with earth and sky, river and flame, past and possibility. Their stories are not just about gods. They are about choices, healing, justice, and love. Shango's thunder reminds us to fight for what is right. Oshun's river calls us to grace and self-worth. Ogun's blade clears paths no one else can walk. Yemaya's tide washes grief into peace. Eshu's crossroads demand awareness, asking us, which way will you go and who will you become? They are not here to be worshipped from afar. They are here to be honored, engaged, and known. In a world that often disconnects us from our roots, remembering the Orishas is an act of return. A return to sacred rhythm, a return to spiritual authority, a return to a truth that was never erased, only hidden. If you've felt them calling, in dreams, in songs, in the tug of your soul towards something older than religion, know that you are not alone. The Orishas are waiting, and the path is still open. If this journey into the world of the Orishas stirred something in you, curiosity, memory, recognition, don't let it fade. Like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and more importantly, seek your own path, ask questions, light a candle, speak their names, because these are not gods of history. They are the spirits who never left, and they are listening.